Hello and welcome to That Shooting Show. My name's Steve Anderson. I am, as always, your humble host. Want to thank our partners first. Walther Firearms, as you know, is the proud title sponsor of the podcast and of AndersonShooting.com. More and more people are picking up the old steel frame PDP. And if you're joining me and Joey in Lima, Cridersville, Ohio this weekend, we will have the steel frame PDP. And we will have some ammo for you to shoot, so you can look forward to that. And that'll be awesome. And as always, all the Walther competition-appropriate firearms do come with a 30-day money-back guarantee, so check them out. Well, if you're from Canada, you can check them out. If you're not from Canada, you can check them out. All right, so other sponsors, partners, Targets USA, as you know, manufactures the finest steel targetry on the planet. It is portable, it is affordable, it is the very best. If Jason Wood makes it, it is the best it can be. He's got a new gear-operated swinger you might want to check out. So if you're if that's something that appeals to you, I do know he's been posting a lot about a new gear run swinger, and I'm telling you, it's going to be the best. Otherwise, he wouldn't make it available. CR Speed, as you know, manufactures the finest gun handling gadgetry you can wrap around your waist or anywhere else. The mighty AMG-lab.com Commander timer continues to turn heads and blow minds with a very long wait time. Guys, I'm sorry about the wait times for the AMG. I have personally nothing to do with that. All I know is you will get a timer, and it will be the best timer on the market. That is what I can tell you about that. Hunter's HD Gold, as you know, is the only eyewear that I wear, and you know that because I are wearing it right now. OutdoorDynamics.net remanufactures the finest competition ammunition you can dispense from a Freedom Seed dispenser, and ShootingSportsInnovations.com is a lot to type because there's a lot to see when you get there. Promo code Anderson gets you free shipping and a David Lee Roth approved range towel, so check it out. All right, and as always, you can go to AndersonShooting.com and upcoming classes to see where we're at and what we're doing. We have added a lot of classes lately, and we'll be adding more in the weeks to come. So check that often. If you want a free class in your area, send me an email that says, hey, I got access to a range. Hey, I am the range owner. Hey, I know the range owner. Hey, we can do this thing. And we can make it happen. And if you're the class sponsor, you get the class for free. And you also get the option of hosting me in your home where you can pick my brain all that you want to. Pretty cool. And we have a lot of fun with that, meet a lot of new people, meet a lot of cool road dogs, road children. It's pretty cool. I'm an excellent guest, by the way. 5 out of 5 would recommend. So, all right, what we're going to be talking about today is, are you practicing wrong? And I don't know, in the average shooting community, I would estimate that 75% of people, maybe more, are practicing incorrectly from primarily a mental game standpoint. Mental game is not just for competition. Mental game is a thing that is happening all of the time. And by the way, mental management classes are posted under upcoming classes. You can see the online classes that we're doing there. But you got to understand, your mental game is always under construction, whether you're there or not. Kind of like if you ever drive through road construction and there's barrels and blockages and lane changes, and they got one guy out there in a pickup truck. Well, that's your mental game. Okay, you've got roadblocks, you've got construction, and you may have one guy out there with a pickup truck. And other times, you drive through construction on the road, and it's busy, and you can actually see them making progress. That's how we want to look at your mental game, driving through construction, being in charge of it, as opposed to these things are happening beyond my control. So I have prepared a list. Anderson Insiders will get the show prep as always. Anderson Insiders, they do get access to all of the outlines for all the podcasts going back a very long time. So, number one, are you practicing or are you plinking? Do you have a set agenda of things you're going to work on in live fire practice? The opportunities from your last match is a great place to start. That was the bulk of my live fire practice when I was actively competing. Anything that I'm trying to be positive here. Any opportunities for improvement I saw at the last match would be the primary focus of my training. And the first thing we have to look at, if we're looking at things we want to do better at the next match, and we're looking at that from the previous match, the first thing you have to know, was the issue mental or was it technical? The vast majority of the errors people complain about in matches are mental. Yes, they made a mistake, but they didn't make a mistake because they don't have the skill that was required. They made a mistake because they didn't manage their mind. And if it is technical, and let's be pretty specific about that. Technical would be something that you just don't have the skill to do. A tricky swinger, some kind of moving target, a more difficult target than you're accustomed to, a 50-yard steal, 25-yard headshot. Okay, those last two examples could be mental or technical, meaning you may not have the skill to make a 25-yard headshot. Your optic may not be zeroed correctly. If you're shooting iron sights, your iron sights might not be set correctly. You may not know what you need to see for that kind of shot. Anything that is not difficult that caused a mistake is 100% mental. And the better you are, the more likely you are to disrespect close and or quote-unquote easy targets. That's mental. It's not technical. You know, you masters, you grandmasters, you champions, you didn't miss because you don't have the skill. You missed because your mind was somewhere else. So if you're working on a technical issue, I beg, implore, and beseech thee to manage your opinion of the skill while it is under construction. If you're working on strong hand, weak hand, you need to be actively imprinting to your self-image, I'm getting better at this. If you don't, the fixes you make to the skill will not be there for you in competition. They simply won't. For example, if you go out and practice strong hand only and you say, yep, I still suck. Yep, I still suck. Yep, I still suck. That is the shooter that goes to the match. You see a strong hand, weak hand stage, your last opinion is, yep, I still suck. Even if you did make technical improvements, you won't get access to them. Okay? Negative opinion of training is one of the biggest problems in the sport. The other biggest problem in the sport is the conscious control of speed. I had a wonderful call with a guy yesterday. He had been told, he'd been giving some well-intentioned advice. He was told to shoot the stages as aggressively as possible. Well, that's okay. But that turned into a conscious control of speed. What I told him to do was put your dot in the middle of the target as aggressively as possible. And then I said, does that sound like different advice? Yeah, that's different advice. Slowing down or speeding up will never be a subconscious performance, will never give you access to your training or your skills. So you got to know if you're practicing or plinking. Okay, plinking is great. Plinking is great fun, but don't confuse it with practicing. It's not the same thing. Number 2, are you shooting stages over and over and over again? If you are, we need to know why. There is a time and a place to shoot a stage 10 times. I would rather you dry fire a stage 10 times than shoot it live 10 times, but that's okay. You need to have a specific purpose for doing it, and you need to have a specific goal. One of the things we do in private lessons is we'll set up a stage, we'll look at the biggest numbers, and we'll drill those skills individually. We'll say, okay, you're 304 from here to here. How can we get that under 3? Move the gun in a straight line, keep the gun ready to shoot, maintain body height, do something to contribute to leaving, and shoot as soon as possible. If something's taking you 304 and you do those things, that number is going to drop precipitously. Precipitously? Quickly and dramatically. Okay? But you got to have a goal and you got to have a definition of success. I cannot stress that enough, so I'll stress it more. If you don't know what success is in training, you will never, ever experience it. I spoke to a guy last night. He says, man, I go out and, so I have a very high level PRS team that I'm working with right now, including several world and national champions. And one of the guys is having a little bit of a confidence problem. He's a national champion. He's a world champion. But he's having a confidence problem. He was the guy that said, I never feel like I'm accomplishing anything. So it's probably not true that he's not accomplishing anything. But if he doesn't feel like he's accomplishing something, he leaves the range frustrated, disappointed. That will damage his confidence. So if you're working on a stage, shoot it for score. Try to shoot it as realistically as possible, meaning give yourself a 5-minute walkthrough, give yourself the range commands, don't give yourself a mulligan. I mean, if you have a malfunction or whatever, that's fine. But you're shooting for score as if it was a match. It's the first thing you want to do. We got to be able to produce a winning performance on demand. So we're going to shoot it for score, and we're going to look at the biggest numbers on the timer. Time to first shot. Time between positions. Standing reloads, if that's a thing. It's not likely to be a thing here, but if it's a classifier type stage you're doing, there could be a standing reload involved. You're going to shoot for score and then drill the biggest numbers one at a time. And what you have to do here is whatever you decide or whatever you find that reduces these big numbers, ideally you would drill those until the improvement becomes subconscious. And I don't know exactly how long that's going to take. I suppose it would depend on how drastic the changes are. If it's a body height issue, meaning if you're coming in low and standing up to shoot, that's going to require the conscious mind to manage that for some period of time. In fact, any change you make to your normal way of operating is going to take some amount of time to become subconscious. This is why shooting for score, again, can be risky depending on how much time you have. And again, depending on depending on how significantly the change is, that would determine whether you're going to shoot it for score. Many times when I'm working with people one-on-one, we don't shoot it for score again, because we know these are significant changes that aren't going to be subconscious. Because if you go through the stage and you think about the new technique or the improved technique, you will display the new improved technique. But you may not shoot very well in terms of accuracy. That's why shooting for score can be very risky. What we don't want is to go out, identify some ways to save some time, actively, consciously do those things, have poor hits on the target, which is very likely short term, and say, well, that didn't work. That was a waste of time. Yeah, I'm faster, but I suck. So be very careful shooting for score again. I do it all the time. I'm extremely good at putting myself back into match mode, because if you shoot for score after a period of intense training, one of at least two, maybe three, let me think about it for a minute. Let's start with two. There might be a third one. Number one, you may revert to your old technique and shoot really well from an accuracy standpoint. That would be one possible outcome. A more likely outcome would be you'll shoot it significantly quicker with questionable accuracy. That's the most likely outcome. The third possibility is that you will see an increase in hit factor to the extent that the new behavior is subconscious and you've gone back to shooting the speed of sight. I know that's a lot to unpack, but those are the three possible outcomes, and that's why shooting for score again after a period of intense training can be risky. The better your mental game is, the easier you can do it. And if you understand, hey, if I'm trying to change these techniques, I need to do them enough times so that they happen without conscious thought. This is where a coach can be really helpful. These things are hard to see. If you're shooting subconsciously, you may not know if you're doing the new thing. But a coach can tell you. I can tell you. I can say, hey, you're doing a great job of this. Maintaining body height, getting the gun to the new target, shooting sooner, leaving sooner, all of those things. Okay? So it's really important to know what you are attempting to do. I do not think that most shooters know that the goal of practice is to create a high level of skill that is available without conscious thought. I don't think most people know that. Most of you guys know it, but I don't think most shooters know that's what they're trying to do. You have to use your conscious mind to learn or improve a skill. You got to break it down a little bit. Okay, what am I doing? How can I do it better? A conscious mind is great at that. Once you establish a repeatable technique, repetition is the only thing that will move that new or improved skill to the subconscious. A high number of reps. The reps do need to be similar. They do not need to be perfect. You're telling me I'm not telling you anything of the sort, Mr. Fudd. What I'm telling you is repetition is the only way to move a new skill to the subconscious. And 10 perfect reps won't do it. 100 acceptable reps might do it. And again, how many reps it takes depends on the amount of change. So you must maintain a positive opinion of this process. Must maintain a positive opinion of this process. If you do not, your opinion of the skill, if it's poor, will result in the skill being executed poorly. I went out and trained movement for 4 hours and I couldn't hit the dang target at the end of it. That means I don't trust this new skill. But if you say, hey, I went out and worked on movement and I cut loads of time off my entries, exits, and periods of movement. Now I'm going to return to shooting at the speed of sight. That is how this works. If you feel like nothing you do is ever good enough, I could name 4 people that practice that way, household names. Nothing I do is ever good enough. When I'm accurate, I'm slow. When I'm fast, I'm sloppy. I never get it right. And these people have some success, particularly on stages or matches that play to their strengths, but they are doomed to be mid-packers for as long as they do that. It feels like the right thing to do, particularly if we come from law enforcement or military. I got to be hard on myself to get better. Never good enough. Never got to be perfect. It's never perfect. You will become these statements. No matter what I do, can't do it. You will become these statements. Hey, I went out and worked on strong hand, weak hand. I'm getting so much better. I could do this in my sleep. Now, that's what we're talking about. So if nothing you do is never good enough, wait, a double negative. If nothing you do is ever good enough, or everything you do is never good enough, severely damaging to you. Oh, you're telling me just to take a participation trophy. You're telling me to give myself a second place prize. It's not what I'm doing. You must go out and work on perceived weaknesses. You must. But if you still see them as weaknesses after you've worked on them, you're not going to get the benefit of the training. Okay? Number 5, do you talk to yourself more harshly than you would a shooter you are trying to help? Most of you have taken people to the range that are new gun owners or new competitors, and you've showed them some stuff. Do you talk to yourself more harshly than you talk to them? If so, why? Meaning, if talking harshly to somebody who's learning is the right thing to do, why don't you do it to the people that you're helping? And if it's not good for them, why is it good for you? Well, I can take it. Yeah, you think you can. But that's why your confidence is lacking, because you're talking to yourself more harshly than you would talk to a shooter that you're trying to help. Do not do that. Talk to yourself like a shooter you are trying to help. Okay? Number 6, are you trying to improve speed and accuracy at the same time? Or are you trying to improve speed while maintaining a level of accuracy? This is virtually impossible. You will never improve speed and accuracy at the same time. You can improve both very easily and very quickly when you use the 3 modes of practice. And you could even improve both in the same training, but not at the exact same time. Let's say you're a steel challenge shooter. You want a faster first shot. Okay? You're at 1-2 for the first plate. You can get down from 1-2 to 1-1, 105, 99 very quickly, but you're going to miss the plate a few times. Because if you could do it in a 99 every time, you'd already be doing it with a 99 every time. But you can't right now. So in that example, what does it feel like to react to the timer sooner? What does it feel like to get the gun out of the holster sooner? What does it feel like to fire at the end of the draw stroke? And here you should be celebrating the time gains. You're telling me to go out and practice missing. I'm telling you to go out and practice doing something at a different level, a different limit of human function. I posted some videos a while ago of 3 turn-in draws to steal in under a second. One of them was a .77. .77 turn-in draw to steal, and I believe that steal was at 7 yards. .77 turn-in draw. And the happiest I got was when I missed in under a second. I started out 120, 115, 108, 109, but I got real interested in reacting to the start tone. And that's when I had my first miss at like 89. And I got so happy and so excited. Most people would say, this ain't working. Well, I can do it, but I can't get a hit. Well, of course you can't the first time you try it. Of course you can't. But when you know what it feels like to turn and draw and fire a shot in under a second, then all you got to do is put the dot in the middle of the target with a new, improved limit of human function. So you want to use the 3 modes of practice to ensure success, achieve success, save time, and build your confidence. When I do classes, there has only ever been one shooter that I can remember who has failed to fire a safe shot in under a second out of the holster. They didn't hit anything. Sometimes they did, sometimes they didn't. But we state the goal ahead of time. Shooter, would you like to have an alpha, or would you like to have a safe shot in under a second? I want both. If you could do both, you'd have already done both. We're talking 5, guys, we got 5 minutes here. There's 10 shooters on the line. But if I can get them to agree that a safe shot under a second is the goal and the definition of success, they can always do it. The only shooter I can remember that couldn't do it just simply didn't want to. They got a little scared. And it's understandable. The first time you draw and fire a shot under a second, it feels a little, I don't know if it feels unsafe, but it sure feels different. And if this particular shooter believed it was unsafe, and that's fine. We're not going to ask you to do anything you feel uncomfortable doing. And I think we have a bullet point on dry firing at the range. In fact, I'm sure we do, so we'll hold off on that for here in a minute. So speed, accuracy match. In speed mode, the timer is more important than the target. Accuracy, the target's more important than the timer. Match means you leave only acceptable shots as quickly as you can see them. Know which one you are in. Now, everybody here, I don't know if Christian Siler listens to the program, but unless you are a current national champion, you either need to get faster or more accurate. And you know which one it is. Me, for example, if I were to resume competing again, I'm very accurate. I need to get faster. So if I was to start competing again, I'd spend more time in speed mode. I have an excellent match mode. I invented match mode. Okay? So if you need to get faster, we'll address that quickly. More accurate, if you need to get more accurate and you're not a complete beginner, that's 100% mental. 100% mental if you're not a beginner. If you're in B class or above and you need to get more accurate, that's mental. C class or below, there could be some trigger stuff going on there that may need to be addressed on a technical issue. But if you're B class or above and you have an accuracy problem, I promise you it's 100% mental. I promise you. Okay, so let's assume you need to get faster. Here's how to do it. What you need to do to get faster, in particular if you want to increase classifications. Dry fire to raise the limit of human function on everything the classifiers require. And the classifiers are getting much broader, much more representative of the entire sport. I fully support that. Okay, the classifier system's not perfect, but the more we have classifiers that have movement in them, the better that system gets. Okay, draws, reloads, any kind of presentation can all be practiced in dry fire. The timer is more important than the target when you're looking for big gains. right? If you're trying to get a sub-second first shot or a 70 or an 80 or whatever it is, for a short period of time, the target's not relevant. If you can't present the gun in 7/10 or 8/10 or whatever the goal is, what is the point of looking for a great sight picture? But if you can present the gun 60, 70, 80, and you do that 100 times, it's very easy to get an acceptable sight picture at the end of that. And again, a high quantity of acceptable reps is way better than a low number of perfect reps. Well, you're telling me to go out there and practice sloppy. That's not what I'm saying, Mr. Fudd. A high number of acceptable reps is the only way the improvement becomes subconscious. And for the love of Pete and Poughkeepsie, I think I'm wearing my Poughkeepsie. Yeah, I'm actually wearing my Poughkeepsie t-shirt. Bill Dolan heard me talk about Pete and Poughkeepsie and sent me a Poughkeepsie t-shirt. I believe it says, Poughkeepsie is calling and I must go. That's where Pete is. We got to go help Pete. For the love of Pete and Poughkeepsie, do not stop to become an expert in your mistake. I did a dry fire tune-up with a guy. He wanted to have a 10-minute discussion about his first rep, and I'm like, can we just do another one? He missed his grip. He wants to have a 10-minute discussion about misses. Can we just do another one? Can we just do another rep? If you stop to document the error, you become an expert in making the error. Do another rep. Anytime you're looking for speed, I want you to replace the word faster with sooner, especially as it relates to gun handling. Sooner will cause less tension and produces much quicker results. React to the timer sooner. Get the hand on the gun sooner. Get the gun out of the holster sooner. Get the gun toward the target sooner. Faster, 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 faster will tense you up. Sooner, in my experience, produces much less tension. And the shorter the exercise is, the more important the reaction is to the timer. When I was doing my sub-second turn-in draws, my sub-second one-hand shots, the reaction to the timer is 30% of that time, give or take. What do I mean? What I mean is the start tone is 0.3 of a second long. And if you're trying to do something in under a second and you wait for the start tone to end, you've given up a third of the potential time you could be. Unique New York. Unique New York. If you wait for the start tone to expire, you've given up 30% of the available time in which to complete the task. Steel challenge shooters, you need to be living on the B of the beep. Living on the B of the beep. Okay? If you want faster movement, we are in an era of unprecedented movement analysis. Okay? We have all these names for all these things. And there's nothing wrong with any of that. But it's really not necessary. Okay? If you go out to do a third pinky toe push-off exit, you can do that. Hard exit, soft exit. Use this muscle, use that muscle. Plyometric, I don't know. Here's all you need to do to get better at movement. Set up whatever movement you're looking to improve. And I prefer a steel target when working on movement to a paper target. Because the accuracy standard, if we're going to have one, and we eventually do need one, the accuracy standard is simple to apply and achieve. If you're using a paper target and you cut your movement time in half with a delta or a mic, delta's a better example, Charlie or delta. We don't really know if it was good. Oh, I did it, but I got a delta. Took a half second off my time, but I got a delta. Okay. Did you or did you not take a half second off your time? How did you do it? Could you do it again? Right? But if you use steel, there's no opportunity for that complaint. And because entries and exits and periods of movement on steel give people higher anxiety, that's another good reason to practice movement on steel. Okay? Shoot for score. Video can be very helpful when you're working on movement. Very, very helpful. You may not be, and slow motion video, or if you can do the scrubby thing where you move the, whatever that thing's called, it's not a cursor, but the play bar, I guess that's what you'd call it. When you can scrub that and move it back and forth, you'll find all sorts of little time wasters that you didn't know you were employing. It's another great reason to have a coach like me. with regard to movement, every position has some kind of contribution to leaving that you can do as you are shooting. Okay, pick up a foot, shift your weight, begin to lean a little bit. Your job is to find the contribution to leaving and employ it. Accuracy will suffer during this process. You know, if I teach somebody to pick up a foot or shift their weight or lean a little bit and they miss, it didn't work. Well, of course it didn't work the first time you tried it. Of course it didn't work. But it's something that you need to learn to do. Accuracy will suffer during this process. It's part of the process. And dry firing at the range can be extremely helpful to get high reps without disappointing accuracy. Dry firing at the range, man, if I had known about that when I was actively competing, it would have revolutionized my practice like it does now. When I'm at the range, I probably dry fire 75% more than I live fire. Because I know I can hit the targets. It's not a problem. But if I'm trying to do it quicker, I'm going to miss a little bit. And dry fire saves the ammo, saves the negative imprints, saves the disappointment. Okay, so let's say you've got one steel target, 6 feet of movement, another steel target. Okay, and that takes you 3 seconds. Well, the biggest number is going to be the period of movement. How can I reduce that number? Can I fire a shot at steel while picking up a foot? Starting my shuffle. You may miss a couple times. And that's okay. But if you do it in dry fire say it's taking you 3 seconds, you dry fire with a 2.5 second part time. You do that for 5 minutes. Go back to seeing what you need to see, putting it out in the middle of the target, whatever your competition point of focus is. You're going to be hitting that thing right away, much, much quicker, much, much sooner. Okay. Short periods of movement have very little to do with foot speed. And if the period of movement is 6 feet, getting to 100% speed will just be bad. You can't go from 0 to 100 back to 0 in 6 feet. You're not an AC Cobra, right? You'll get more time, more gains by leaving sooner and shooting sooner, keeping the gun up, moving the gun in a straight line from where it can see the last target to where it can see the next target. I've shown so many people that with so many great results. You want to avoid prairie dogging and formal setups whenever possible, and it's always possible. Right? When you watch Morgan Rose 3-gun on Instagram, Morgan Leonardo, and when you watch Christian Seiler, there are others, but these are just the first 2 names that come to mind, you will never see a formal setup once they start shooting the stage. It's easier to see when Morgan does it than it is when Christian does it. Morgan exaggerates it a little bit more, so it's easier to see. Christian does it a little bit quicker, so it's a little harder to see. But these are great people to watch. There are others. Those are just the first 2 that come to my mind. Okay. I would say on a field course, you never need a formal setup. It takes time. When you move into a position and you insist on a perfect setup, that takes 0.3 to a half a second every single time. And then it takes 0.3 to a half a second to get out of that perfect setup. But if you simply pause, whatever your body's doing when you get there, if you just pause right there, you can make that shot. But it's different. It's not new. Okay? Set something up, put a par time on it, dry fire it extensively, and then shoot it again for score. That will make you faster at anything. Okay? And again, shooting may be ugly during this process. Everybody knows when I'm thinking about my feet, I don't shoot very well. Well, there's 2 things to learn there. So number 1, when you're working on your feet, don't expect to shoot really well. And number 2, if you know thinking about your feet produces poor shooting, don't ever think about your feet in competition. What do you mean? Well, what I mean is we just established that when we're thinking about our feet, we don't shoot that great. So why would we ever do it in competition? What if we think about our feet in competition? Teach the feet how to do it subconsciously, and then let them do their thing at the match. And then use video to determine if you're doing the thing. Okay? Do you need to get more accurate? This can only be sight or trigger. If you have an accuracy problem, it cannot be anything but sight or trigger. Well, it could be my grip. It can only be grip to the extent that grip influences sight and trigger. You do not need a perfect grip to fire an accurate shot. Now, you need a great grip to fire accurate shots quicker, for sure. But if the problem is the second shot on a paper target, you may be shooting doubles or pairs beyond an appropriate distance. I'm going to go out and shoot doubles. As long as we define doubles as a continuous sight picture or a predictive sight picture, I'm fine. But if we're calling doubles 2 shots on 1 sight picture, that is an error for most shooters most of the time. Okay, predictive shooting means I know what my sight is going to do on this target at this distance, so I can simply watch it do it without waiting to confirm that it has happened. Don't even really like to talk about it very much, but everybody know, you should know what I'm talking about by now. But that only works out to a certain distance. Now, if you can live fire a lot, you can stretch that distance. That's why Eric Graffel's so great at it. He probably fires more rounds than anybody on the planet. And that's where you get really great at predictive shooting. It's the only thing you can't learn in dry fire. I mean, you can get close in dry fire, but if the problem is the second shot, you're probably shooting doubles or pairs with less than 2 sight pictures, or you're for sure seeing less than you need to see, for sure. Okay? Group shooting is the best way to learn subconscious trigger control over time. Trust me, trust me, trust me, trust me. Freestyle, strong hand only, weak hand only groups every single time you go to the range, every single time you go to the range. If you can't shoot a group about the size of a baseball, well, let's refine that a little bit. You need to be able to shoot a group about the size of a baseball, freestyle, strong hand, and weak hand, and those distances need to be increasing. Ideally, you can shoot a baseball-sized group, 25 yards freestyle, 15 to 20 strong hand, and 15 support hand. And if you're having trouble with group shooting, dry fire is the way. Watch the sight as the hammer or striker falls and look for extra movement when that happens. Yes, the dot is going to be moving. You can't stop it, so don't try to. What you're looking for is whether there is extra movement when the hammer striker falls. And I believe the best zero distance is the farthest distance you can shoot a good group. There may be a good reason for a 7-yard zero in some cases, but I would rather have that distance be longer. If we have to adjust our hold, I'd like that to be on easy targets as opposed to hard targets. It's just my personal preference. Okay? But going back to accuracy for a second, above the beginner level, it's more likely to be mental than technical. Okay? And if you're ever having an accuracy problem, you have to know whether it was sight or trigger. You have to. How do we know the difference? If the sight was on the target when you press the trigger and the shot is poor, that's trigger. If the sight was not on the target when you press the trigger, that's sight. Anytime we're in class, somebody has an accuracy issue, first thing I want to know is sight or trigger, sight or trigger, sight or trigger. What do you mean? Was the dot in the middle of the plate? I never saw the dot. Okay, that's sight. And by the way, if your gun doesn't lock back, or even if it does, you can learn a lot about your trigger control anytime the gun's out of ammo. A little bit of movement when the gun has gone empty doesn't always mean you're doing that. When the gun fires, it's difficult to explain quickly, but there's a recoil management thing that sometimes happens that isn't the same thing as a flinch. We don't have time to dissect that. But the gun should not move a whole lot if you press the trigger after guns run out of ammo. Okay, if it moves a lot, that's for sure for lack of a better term, we'll call that a flinch, or for sure a trigger honk. Okay. Now, if you want to get better shooting while moving, this is primarily a match mode exercise, and the timer is not very important. The first way to begin is to dry fire moving. You can just hold an acceptable sight picture. Just move whatever kind of movement you're doing. Just move around and hold a sight picture on whatever target you're using. You will learn, your body will learn pretty quickly what it has to do to maintain that sight picture. I'm not a huge advocate of timing the shot on or off a foot unless that's a subconscious thing. Meaning, if the sight picture is most stable when we have a foot in the air, that's fine. But if we're intentionally shooting every time we pick up a foot and the sight doesn't dictate or be in control of that, then I don't support that. The last thing I want you to do if you're shooting while moving in competition is foot up, shoot, foot up, shoot, foot up. Now, if that happens subconsciously, I'm fine with that. But if you have to control the foot in the shot, I'm not okay with that. That's not good. Okay? You must avoid doubles when practicing shooting while moving. You need to be firing individual shots. Split times are not hugely important when shooting while moving because you're getting to the end of the stage. I watched Gaz from South Africa shoot a stage one time, and it was the most boring thing I'd ever seen. It was kind of like a arrowhead-shaped stage or a flock of geese type stage, and he reckoned he could shoot the whole thing while moving laterally, and his splits were in the 40s. And I was like, good job, Gaz, but I was a little worried about the time because it was so boring to watch. You know, boom, 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 boom. If you're finished, unload, show clear. Wow, you just did that in 8 seconds. That's pretty cool. But if you shoot doubles while you're shooting while moving, the second shot is usually going to be a problem. Either because you didn't see anything for the second shot or potentially because something happened to the body that disrupted the sight picture and you'd already committed to the shot. But if you fire individual shots as opposed to doubles or pairs, and that still means 2 shots on a target, 2 individual shots on a target as opposed to doubles or pairs. Okay, very, 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 very important. Okay, and number 12, the most important thing you can ever learn to do is call your shots, particularly if you dry fire significantly more than you live fire. If you're going to be dry firing significantly more than you live fire, then shot calling should be the majority of your live fire practice. It turbocharges your dry fire, and it solves forever the speed and accuracy debate. I just want to tell you again, if you're consciously controlling your speed in competition, you're either under trying or over trying, and you always make the wrong choice. When you learn to call your shots and you shoot at the speed of sight, you'll always be shooting accurately at the correct speed. That's when you're practicing correctly. Okay? And those of you that have come to class know that we probably spend at least 20% of that class time working on shot calling, primarily because it is the most important skill you can possibly have. So hopefully this has helped you learn a little bit about how to practice better. In my humble opinion, I've really enjoyed sharing it with you. And as always, I want to say until we meet again on the range, off the range, on the Zoom, on the phone, or anywhere else, be like me, do what I do, say it with me. 1, 2, 3, get to work.